It all began on an ordinary autumn morning. The sky was gray, the air crisp, and the whistle of the 7:45 a.m. passenger train from Beresford to Hollowstone echoed across the golden fields. Inside carriage 4B, nestled by a slightly fogged-up window, sat a young woman named Lila Monroe, headphones in, sketchbook out, and her mind far from the mundane rhythms of her commute. Lila was an art student returning from a week-long nature retreat, her backpack filled with charcoal sketches of mountain ridges, river bends, and tangled forest groves. But no drawing she had ever made would prepare her for what was about to unfold. At exactly 8:07 a.m., the train screeched. It didn't slow. It didn't whistle. It simply jolted, as though something unseen had yanked the brakes from below, and stopped in the middle of the forest. Passengers were flung forward. Coffee spilled. Children screamed. A collective confusion swept through the cars. People stood, peered out windows, checked phones. No signal, no conductor's voice, no announcements. Lila felt something odd. A pulse, like the forest itself, had a heartbeat, and it had just skipped. The trees outside were unusually still. Not a breeze stirred them, and despite being deep in the wilderness, no birdsong could be heard, just silence, heavy, watching. Suddenly, a sound cracked the silence, not mechanical, not natural. It was language, spoken, clear, yet not entirely human. It echoed through the woods like a ripple in a pond. Lila, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain, stepped off the train. No one stopped her. "Miss, you shouldn't," a voice called from behind. But she was already on the moss-covered ground, turning in slow circles, her breath visible in the cool air. Then she saw it. A figure, massive, shadowed, unmistakably non-human, stood 20 meters away. It was a gorilla, but not just any gorilla. This one wore a weathered scarf, carried a small satchel across his shoulder, and had eyes so intelligent, so disturbingly aware, that Lila couldn't move. And then, in perfect French, he said, "Vous êtes enfin arrivé, you have finally arrived." Lila froze, her breath caught. The gorilla took a step forward, then another. His movements were smooth, calm, deliberate. He stopped 3 meters away and bowed slightly. "I apologize. French was your first language, yes, but you're more comfortable with English now." "I can adapt," Lila blinked, heart thundering. "What? Who are you?" The gorilla smiled, actually smiled. "My name is Tagore, and I need your help." Lila stared at Tagore, her mind scrambling to process what she was seeing. Her hands trembled. The otherworldly silence of the forest surrounded them like a spell. This is a dream," she whispered. "This can't be real." Tagore tilted his head, his dark fur catching a ray of sun that had somehow broken through the canopy. "Many think that at first. Dreams often try to tell the truth. Reality simply confirms it." "Why are you talking to me?" Lila asked, stepping back. "Because I've waited a long time for you," Tagore said gently. "You carry something inside you. A map, but not on paper, not in ink. It is in your memory, though you don't know it yet." Lila's throat tightened. "I don't understand." "You will." Suddenly, the air shifted. From deep within the forest, a low hum began, like a choir of trees murmuring in an ancient tongue. The leaves rustled without wind. The ground vibrated. Tagore turned his massive head towards the west. "It has begun." "What has?" Lila asked, her heart now racing. He looked back at her, eyes grave. "The mountain is awakening." Lila stared at Tagore, her mind scrambling to process what she was seeing. Her hands trembled. The otherworldly silence of the forest surrounded them like a spell. This is a dream," she whispered. "This can't be real." Tagore tilted his head, his dark fur catching a ray of sun that had somehow broken through the canopy. "Many think that at first. Dreams often try to tell the truth. Reality simply confirms it." "Why are you talking to me?" Lila asked, stepping back. "Because I've waited a long time for you," Tagore said gently. "You carry something inside you. A map, but not on paper, not in ink. It is in your memory, though you don't know it yet." Lila's throat tightened. "I don't understand." "You will." Suddenly, the air shifted. From deep within the forest, a low hum began, like a choir of trees murmuring in an ancient tongue. The leaves rustled without wind. The ground vibrated. Tagore turned his massive head towards the west. "It has begun." "What has?" Lila asked, her heart now racing. He looked back at her, eyes grave. "The mountain is awakening." Tagore led her through the forest on paths no human had walked in centuries. The further they went, the more the world changed. Moss glowed softly underfoot. Strange plants whispered when brushed. Trees bent slightly, not to block them, but to let them through. Lila was overwhelmed. Her thoughts spun. How is this happening? What does he mean, a map inside me? What mountain? At one point she stopped. Wait, why me? Why now? Tagore didn't stop walking but answered without turning. Because your grandmother drew the first map, and you are her last living blood. My grandma, Lila frowned. She died when I was 5. I barely remember her. She remembered you, Tagore said softly, and she passed on more than her eyes. They walked in silence for a while. At sunset they reached a clearing. In the middle stood an ancient stone, taller than a man, carved with swirling symbols that shimmered faintly. Tagore placed a hand on it. Lila felt something inside her pulse, not just emotionally, but physically. Her fingers twitched. Her heartbeat synced with something deep inside the stone. You feel it, Tagore said. The mountain's song. I don't know what I'm feeling. He turned to her, gently reaching out with a massive fur-covered finger and touching her temple. In an instant, memories not her own flooded her mind. A woman with silver hair drawing constellations on cave walls. A map formed from stars and shadows. A doorway made of stone, hidden beneath a mountain shaped like a sleeping lion. Whispers in languages she didn't know but somehow understood. Lila gasped and fell to her knees. Tagore knelt beside her. You are the key, Lila. The path only opens when your blood touches the seal. She looked at the stone. Her hands shook. I didn't ask for this, she said. Few heroes ever do, said Tagore. Night fell. The forest glowed faintly with bioluminescent flowers. Lila and Tagore sat by a small fire he kindled with a strange, silvery flint. Tell me everything, she said. From the beginning, Tagore looked up at the stars. There is a place within the mountain, deep, buried under time and silence, where the Heartstone sleeps. It is not a stone in the usual sense. It's alive, it listens, it remembers, and when awoken, it changes the world. Lila blinked. You mean it has power beyond anything humans have touched since the first age? Then why do we need to wake it? Because something else is waking too, Tagore said darkly. Something that wants to claim it, and if it does, your world will not survive. A chill ran through her. You said you've waited for me. How long? Tagore's voice was low. 70 years, Lila's eyes widened. I'm not ready for this, Tagore looked at her gently. Readiness is not measured by comfort, Lila. It is measured by choice. She looked at the fire, flickering like a warning. Then she whispered, Then I choose to go with you. Tagore smiled, the first true smile. Good. Then we climb at dawn, and far away, beyond valleys and mist, the mountain shuddered in its sleep. The first light of dawn broke like a blade through the dense forest. Mist coiled at their feet as Lila and Tagore approached the base of the mountain that loomed ahead. It was massive, shaped eerily like a reclining lion, with craggy stone formations forming the mane, the brow, and even the closed eyes of the sleeping beast. No path led to it, no signpost or track, just wilderness and silence. Welcome to Mount Leora, Tagore said. Leora, Lila repeated. Is that its real name? In the language of the ancients, it means watcher of light, he said. Long ago, this mountain was a beacon, not of fire, but of memory, of warning. They moved forward carefully. The forest thinned near the base of the mountain, and the air grew colder, heavier, as if gravity itself clung more tightly here. At one point, Tagore stopped and raised a hand. Do not step there, he warned, pointing to a patch of moss. Before Lila could ask why, a breeze swept past them, and the moss parted, revealing rows of carved runes, and a narrow, jagged crevice pulsing with faint blue light. It's a sensor, he explained. If we trigger it, The mountain will defend itself. How do you know all this? Lila asked. I was trained by the last guardian, Tagore replied solemnly, a woman named Rima, your grandmother's sister. Lila's heart skipped. My great-aunt, Tagore nodded. She vanished years ago, but not before she taught me to read the signs and to wait for you. The journey upward wasn't just steep, it was alive. Every few meters, the mountain seemed to change. The ground grew warmer, as if something vast and ancient pulsed beneath the stone. Strange birds with translucent wings watched them silently from the trees. Once, Lila saw something shimmer in midair, like a mirror cracked through dimensions. What was that? She whispered. A gate fragment, Tagore said. Pieces of the veil. The closer we get, the thinner the wall between your world and the other. By midday, they reached a cliff edge. In the center of the rock face stood a vast carving, a lion's head perfectly sculpted, mouth closed, eyes blind. In front of it lay an altar with shallow grooves shaped like hands. This is it, Tagore said. The door beneath the lion. Lila stepped forward. The stone vibrated slightly under her feet. Place your hands in the marks, Tagore instructed. Her palms fit perfectly. As soon as her skin touched the stone, the entire face of the lion rippled, as though it were made of water. The eyes began to glow, not blue or green but golden, and then a grinding sound echoed from within. The lion's mouth slowly opened, dust billowed, wind howled from inside, and from the darkness beyond the threshold a voice whispered, Blood has returned. Memory awakens. Enter, bearer of the mark. Lila looked at Tagore, trembling. I don't think I can do this. You already are, he said quietly. They stepped inside. The interior of the mountain was a cathedral of stone and time. Giant crystals jutted from the walls, pulsing with light. Ancient murals decorated the passageways, showing humanoid figures standing alongside animals, each wielding different powers: flame, water, thought, sound. They were the first circle, Tagore said reverently. Human and beast, bound by the heartstone, they maintained balance between worlds. They moved deeper, until they reached a vast chamber with a circular floor marked by 12 symbols, each glowing faintly. This is the trial hall, Tagore explained. Trial? Before he could answer, the chamber darkened. From above, a sphere of shadow descended, pulsating, swirling with forms that looked almost human, but twisted. Tagore pushed Lila back. Stay behind me, the shadow thing hissed. Too late, the seeker is marked. The heart shall be ours. Then it attacked. Tagore moved like lightning despite his massive frame. He struck with a staff pulled from his satchel. It glowed with runes that burned against the shadow's form, but the entity was fast too. It twisted, broke apart, reformed. Lila stood frozen, fear clutching her chest. But then something pulled her attention. One of the 12 symbols on the floor was glowing brighter than the others. A spiral of wind. Her instincts screamed. She stepped toward it. Lila, no, Tagore shouted. But as her foot touched the glowing spiral, the ground responded. Wind roared around her, lifting her gently into the air. Her eyes glowed white. From her mouth came a voice not her own. Trial 1, awaken the breath. The shadow turned toward her and screamed. From her fingertips, a vortex burst forth, slicing through the darkness like a blade. The shadow shrieked, collapsing into itself, then vanishing entirely. Lila fell to the ground, panting. What was that? She gasped. Tagore helped her up, awe in his eyes. You've begun the awakening. 1 of 12. You passed your first trial. She looked down at her hands. I didn't mean to, I just felt pulled. That's how it begins, Tagore said. The mountain recognizes you now. A soft rumble echoed through the chamber. A stone door at the far end opened silently. Lila stared at it, her voice shaking. What's behind there? Tagore looked serious. The path to the Heartstone, but also to your second trial. He turned to her. And we are not alone anymore. Now that the mountain knows you're here, so do they. The stone door creaked open with an eerie groan, revealing a long corridor bathed in shifting violet light. It pulsed slowly, like the heartbeat of something enormous sleeping deep within the mountain. Lila followed Tagore without a word, her mind still reeling from the first trial. That power, that voice, it wasn't hers. It felt older, as if someone or something had borrowed her body to speak through it. As they moved deeper, the corridor narrowed. The walls became smoother, the carvings more abstract. Spirals, mirrored faces, empty circles. At times the light around them dimmed completely, forcing them to feel their way forward by touch alone. It was during one of these moments that they heard it. A voice whispering, not from ahead, not behind, from inside. "Lila," she spun around. "Who said that?" Tagore stopped. "What did you hear?" "A voice, my name." He tensed. "We've reached the echo caves." She looked around. "Echoes of what?" He turned to her, his gaze grim. "Your mind." The corridor opened into a vast underground chamber, filled with tall pillars and a black, shimmering floor that reflected everything like a mirror. The air here was thick, almost syrupy. Time itself seemed slower. "Trial 2, Tagore whispered. "Face the self." Suddenly, the room flickered, and then Lila was alone. Tagore was gone, the walls were gone. She stood in the middle of an endless void. "Hello?" she called out. No answer. Then footsteps. She turned and froze. Another her stood there, but older. Her face was harder, her eyes colder, her clothes were battle-worn, and her arms bore strange, glowing tattoos. "You shouldn't have come here," the other Lila said. "What are you?" "I'm what you'll become if you fail." Before Lila could react, the floor cracked beneath her. She fell into a memory. She stood in her childhood bedroom. Toys scattered across the floor. Outside the window, moonlight filtered through trees. Then a voice, gentle, warm. "Lila, sweetheart, time for bed." She turned. It was her mother, alive, before the accident. Lila's throat caught. "Mom!" She ran to hug her, but her arms passed through. The room shimmered, and suddenly it wasn't a memory anymore. It was a trap. The walls folded inward. Her mother's voice distorted. "You left me, Lila." "No!" she shouted. "This isn't real." But the illusion grew stronger. The house began to burn. Shadows twisted out of the corners, whispering doubts. "You'll never make it. You're just a girl. You're not chosen, just lost." Then a roar. A massive, furious, echoing roar that shattered the illusion like glass. Lila blinked and saw Tagore standing at the edge of the mirror floor, holding a blazing torch of blue fire. He had found her, but so had it. From the shadows of the chamber, a new form emerged. It looked human, tall, hooded, but its face was a blur of mouths and eyes, all speaking different languages at once. It reached toward Lila. She screamed and instinctively raised her hands. A blast of golden light erupted from her palms, slamming into the creature. It staggered but didn't fall. Tagore leapt between them. "That's no echo. That's a thought-eater," he growled. "It feeds on your regrets, on your fears." "It knows me," Lila gasped. "It is you, twisted," he said. "You must finish the trial. Find the true reflection. How? You must choose which memory is real." The chamber shifted again. Suddenly, Lila stood between two mirrors. One showed her as a powerful warrior, fearless, armored, ruthless. The other, as a child, crying on the night her parents died, holding a shattered snow globe. "Choose," came 1,000 voices. "Which is truth?" Lila stepped toward. "I'm not powerful because I don't feel pain," she said. "I'm powerful because I do." She touched the mirror, and it exploded in light. When she awoke, she was back in the chamber. The thought-eater was gone. The whispering had stopped. Tagore knelt beside her. "You passed," she nodded weakly. "What was that thing, a shadow left by the mountain's last betrayer? It hides in regret. Few survive its trial." She sat up slowly. "So 2 down. 10 to go?" Tagore gave a dry chuckle. "Yes, but these 2 were the ones that test who you are. The next will test what you're willing to do." Lila stood, a new fire in her chest. "Then let's go." They walked onward, and far above, on the surface, something stirred. A crack split across the lion's stone brow, and from it black mist began to seep. The world had begun to notice her awakening. The deeper they went, the less the mountain felt like stone and more like memory. The very walls pulsed, not with life, but with stored emotion. regret, hope, desperation. Lila could feel them as they passed, like echoes pressing softly against her chest. They had traveled for hours since the echo caves. The corridor led them to a spiral staircase carved into living crystal. The light here no longer flickered violet, but a soft amber, like candlelight in dreams. Tagor's pace slowed. He seemed hesitant. "What is it?" Lila asked. He paused. "This next chamber isn't part of the trials." "Then what is it?" "A warning or a trap." They stepped into a dome-shaped room. At its center stood a perfect mirror, tall as a door, framed in black metal that pulsed with crimson veins. Around it, 12 thrones of stone, cracked and empty. But it was what lay before the mirror that made Lila's blood turn cold. A man stood there, waiting. His cloak was tattered at the hem. His armor shimmered with strange runes. His skin was pale, almost silver. But his eyes were pitch black, empty, hungry. Tagor stepped forward. "Karov." The man turned slowly. "Ah, the beast speaks. Still bound to your code, Guardian?" Then his gaze landed on Lila. "And this is the spark I feel across the veil." Lila swallowed hard. "Who are you?" Karov smiled. "Once I was like you, chosen, pure, but the truth is more complicated." He stepped closer. Lila felt the air tighten around her. "I was the 13th, he said. "The one they never speak of," Tagor growled low. "You chose power over balance. You shattered the circle." Karov's voice was calm. "I chose freedom. I saw what the Heartstone really was, a prison, a false light that demands obedience, and now it will be reborn, through her." He raised a hand, and the mirror behind him shimmered. It showed Lila, but older, with the same tattoos Karov bore, her eyes black like his. "No," she whispered. "That is one path," Karov said gently. "One of many. You will see them all. And you will choose." He waved his hand again. The chamber shifted violently. Lila screamed as the floor vanished beneath her, and she fell into the mirror world. The world she landed in looked like the mountain, but wrong. The sky was cracked. The air buzzed with static. Tagor was gone. She stood in a hall of mirrors, dozens, maybe hundreds, each reflecting not just her face, but different versions of herself. One was a queen, ruling over a land of gold. Another, a warrior drenched in blood. One was dead. Another held a flaming heart in her hands, weeping. Karov's voice echoed from every direction. "All paths are real, all choices possible. But one must be made." Then, from behind one mirror, something crawled out. It looked like Lila, but not human. Her skin was cracked obsidian, her mouth too wide, her hands clawed, her eyes burned white. It shrieked and lunged. Lila rolled aside, heart pounding. The creature slashed through a mirror, shattering it. And from the shards, 2 more versions of it crawled out. Panic surged. She couldn't fight them, not like this. Then a whisper from within. "The Heartstone is not a weapon, it is a compass. Let it point true." Lila closed her eyes. She felt the pull toward one mirror, cracked, half covered in moss. She ran to it. The monsters chased her, howling. At the last second, she dove through the mirror and landed back in the original chamber. Alone, or almost, Karov stood, his back to her, staring into the real mirror. "You chose this path," he said softly. "The hardest of them all." "I chose me," Lila said. "Not the version you wanted." He turned, eyes narrowed. "You will regret that." And then he vanished. The mirror cracked. Light poured from it. And then silence. Tagor burst into the chamber, panting. "You're alive," Lila nodded. He stepped toward her and stopped. On her wrist, where once was bare skin, now glowed the mark of the 13th. A spiral, surrounded by fire. She looked at it, stunned. "What does this mean?" Tagor's voice was low. "It means you are the final key." The thrones in the room shuddered. Dust fell. The mountain trembled. And from deep, deep below them, a voice rumbled up like a storm. "She has returned. The balance must be broken, or restored." Lila looked to Tagor, and for the first time saw fear in his eyes. The earth trembled for a full minute after Karov vanished. Stone dust fell from the ceiling like snowfall. Lila stared at the glowing spiral mark on her wrist, the light pulsing in sync with the mountain itself. Tagor steadied her. "We must move, now," he said grimly. "The next chamber lies beneath the roots." "Roots?" she asked, still shaken. "The world tree sleeps under the mountain. Its roots feed the entire realm of Garthun. Beneath them lies the temple of balance, the birthplace of the Heartstone." Lila's breath caught. "So it's real. The Heartstone is real." "Yes," Tagore said, "and it is not what the world believes." She turned to him. "You're not coming," he shook his head. "I am Guardian. You are Flameborn. This place will show you the truth, but beware, Lila. Not all truths bring light." The door opened at her touch and swallowed her whole. Darkness, then light, soft and golden. She stood in an impossibly vast chamber, open beneath the roots of the mountain. Above her, a canopy of glowing vines. Below, a lake of stardust. In the center, a pedestal. And on it, the Heartstone. It hovered in place, spinning slowly. A perfect sphere, silver and gold, shot through with living light. As she stepped toward it, two figures emerged from the shadows. One wore robes of light, face hidden behind a serene porcelain mask. The other wore jagged armor made of night itself, face concealed by a crown of bone. "Who are you?" Lila asked. The masked figure bowed slightly. "We are the echoes of choice," the crowned one chuckled. "And we are what waits behind it." They moved to either side of the Heartstone. Guardians or temptations, she could not tell. The masked one spoke first. "Take the Heartstone, bind it with your will. You will bring balance, restore order, heal the world." The crowned one hissed, "Crush it, free the world from chains. Let every soul choose without fate's poison," the light one said. "You will become protector," the dark one said. "You will become liberator." Lila stood still, torn. "Both of you want me to rule, not rule," they said together. "Shape." Her hands shook. The Heartstone called to her. Warm, familiar, ancient. But so did the idea of freedom, of breaking everything, to build something new. "What happens if I do nothing?" she asked. The chamber trembled. The light one said, "The world will devour itself," the dark one said, "or devour you." Suddenly the air split. A bolt of black fire flashed into the lake. Karov appeared, cloaked in shadow, laughing. "Ah, the fools sent you here alone." He raised a blade made of mirror shards, and Lila, without thinking, stepped forward. She didn't choose the Heartstone. She stepped between it and Karov. "Not yet," she whispered. "I'm not choosing either of you." And the Heartstone responded, not by glowing, but by breaking open. From within spilled a burning thread of pure energy, and it wrapped around her wrist. Karov's smile died. "No, you weren't supposed to." Lila turned her hand, and everything exploded in white. She awoke on the floor of the temple. Tagore knelt beside her, eyes wide. "You're alive, the Heartstone," she said. "It chose me, but not as wielder, as something else." She looked down. Where the mark had been, now burned a second spiral, twinned, balanced. Light and dark. "Lila," Tagore whispered, awe in his voice, "you're not just the key anymore." She looked up at him, eyes burning gold. "I'm the lock." Far above them the mountain rumbled. The world had felt her awakening, and it was afraid. The light that had poured from Lila's hand hadn't faded. It had folded into a thread, a crack, a veil between worlds. And now that crack pulsed behind her like a heartbeat. "It's not over, is it?" Lila asked softly. Tagore shook his head. "No, what you awakened. It was not the Heartstone's final gift. It was the invitation." "To what?" "To the other side of the flame." Lila turned back toward the cracked wall behind the altar. What had once been stone was now a ripple, like a silver curtain of water, suspended in air. A gateway. She stepped forward, and the world flipped. There was no fall, no jump, no transition, just difference. One moment she stood on stone beneath roots. The next, she stood under a sky made of earth and a sea made of stars. The reverse world. The sky was below. The soil floated above her head, drifting like cloud islands. In the distance, mountains flowed upward like waterfalls of stone. And on the horizon, a black sun that neither warmed nor moved. Tagore stepped through the veil beside her, visibly tense. "This is not a place meant for walking things," he said. Lila looked around. "Then who walks here?" Things that once were gods, he murmured. They began to move. The reverse world had no true paths, just currents, invisible streams of gravity that pulled them sideways, upward, even backward, through memory and shadow. They passed a forest of floating bones, a valley made of shattered clocks, a city of whispers, where the buildings repeated things she had never said, but somehow knew she might. Finally, they came to a lake, flat as glass, at its center a spire of obsidian reaching downward into the sky sea below. "That's it," Tagore said. "The oracle waits there." Lila raised a brow. "You didn't mention an oracle before. I did not believe we would need her. But now, you carry both marks," he said. "No one ever has." She nodded, though fear prickled at her neck. They stepped onto the lake. Not into it, but onto. The surface held them like ice, though it shimmered like oil. With each step the lake echoed not with sound, but thoughts. Her own voice, saying things she had never said. "I wanted to stay on the train. I was afraid. I hated my mother for leaving. I think I love him, but he's a gorilla," she flushed. "Are these?" "Yes," Tagore said. "But they are only echoes." At the center of the lake, they reached the spire, and from it descended a figure, long, shadowy, and faceless, with robes that shimmered with moving constellations. The oracle. "You are early," it said in a voice like chimes in a storm. "I didn't schedule anything," Lila muttered. The oracle bowed. "You wear the dual sigil. You broke the mirror. You burned the gate. You are the first flame since the silence." Tagore knelt. "We seek the future. There is no future here," the oracle said. "Only the remembered tomorrow." "What does that mean?" Lila asked. The oracle raised a hand, and the world around them shifted. Suddenly, she was elsewhere. A battlefield. Flames, ash, statues of herself, broken. Karov's voice laughing. Children weeping in cages of silver bone. A sky of red crows, and a throne made of mirrors. On it, herself, crowned, alone, and crying. Then it was gone, back to the lake. Lila staggered. "What was that? A possible end," the oracle said. "One of 1,000. The cost of imbalance." Tagore looked away. "You must see more," Lila growled. "No, no more futures. I'm done being dragged through prophecies. I want to know what I can do, now, that matters." The oracle tilted its head. "That," it said, "is the right question." It extended both hands. In one, a shard of the black sun; in the other, a feather from the floating bones. "Shadow or flight? One you may take." Lila hesitated. "I don't know what they do." "Neither do I," the oracle said, "yet choice creates meaning." She stared at the items. The shard pulsed with raw power, dense, magnetic. The feather glowed with soft light, light enough to lift her soul. She reached for the feather. The oracle smiled, or perhaps simply vanished. The feather melted in her hand and became a key. Tagore stepped forward. "A key to what?" Lila turned. Behind them, the lake split open, revealing a doorway made not of wood or stone, but memories, and from within a voice whispered, "Lila, come home." Her eyes widened. "I know that voice." Tagore tensed. "Whose is it?" She turned to him, pale. "It's my mother." The door rippled like water, but it was made of memory. Not memory as we know it, not photos, not dreams, not fading thoughts, but living memory. It shimmered with echoes. A broken doll, a mother's lullaby, rain tapping on a hospital window. Lila stood frozen. "I haven't heard my mother's voice since I was 7, she whispered. Tagore said nothing, only lowered his head. The voice from the door whispered again, softer now. "Lila, do you remember the red scarf?" And she did. She didn't know how. But suddenly the image bloomed in her mind. A bright red scarf with golden embroidery. Her mother had wrapped it around her neck the night she disappeared. Lila raised the memory key. The door unfolded like a lotus, petals of recollection peeling open one by one, and she stepped through. She stood in a tiny apartment kitchen. The smell of cinnamon and tea filled the air. Rain tapped gently on the window. She looked down and realized she was smaller, her hands childlike, her arms soft and thin. She gasped, "This is my childhood," she said aloud. Footsteps. A woman entered the kitchen, humming a lullaby, and Lila felt her knees go weak. It was her mother. Not a dream, not a ghost. A real memory. Her voice, her presence, her warmth, exactly as Lila had remembered and feared to remember. But her mother wasn't alone. At her side stood a young gorilla, smaller, thinner, cloaked in a shawl. It was unmistakably Tagore. Lila staggered back. No, that can't be. The memory didn't see her. Her mother turned to the younger Tagore. "She's not ready yet, but one day the flame will stir. She is already marked," said Tagore, his voice younger, smoother. "She survived the Ashbourne fire untouched." Lila's breath caught. Ashbourne, fire. Her mother placed a hand over a sleeping child's heart. "Then I must leave her. She must grow far from us, or Korov will find her." "You trust the train?" Tagore asked. Her mother smiled sadly. "It's not a train, it's a cocoon." Lila's eyes widened. She watched herself sleeping, oblivious, in the other room. "She knew," she whispered. "She sent me away, and that scarf, the red one, was being folded." "I will return to Garthun," her mother said. "I will hide the sigils, but if she finds the Heartstone, she must not bind it. She must free it." Tagore's voice lowered. "And if she fails?" Her mother didn't answer. She only looked out the window, toward a sky glowing faintly with 2 moons. Then, like smoke, the memory dissolved. Lila fell to her knees on a soft hill of starlight. Tagore was beside her, older now, present, real. "You knew her," Lila said. "You knew my mother," he nodded. "She saved me once, from the scorching plague. In return, I swore to protect you." Lila's heart thundered. "So the train wasn't a mistake, no. She made it stop. She built it to stop when your flame stirred." Lila laughed, a wild, broken sound. "And you were part of it all along, my guide, my protector, my friend." Tagore lowered his head. "And now, perhaps, your enemy." She looked up sharply. "What?" He opened his palm. In it, the black shard from the oracle. "I chose shadow." Lila's blood turned to ice. "You what?" "I chose it to counter you, to balance you. You carry the feather, the flame, the memory. I carry the shadow, the silence, the loss." She stood, backing away. "You tricked me. No, I saved you. And now I must test you." The reverse world shuddered. From the horizon, Korov's laughter rang out again. "You see," Tagore said, "he comes, and he has no balance, only destruction." The sky split. Lightning rained upward. Tagore stepped into a stance. Lila's wrists glowed twin spirals burning bright, and as the world cracked open, revealing the final path to the mountain's core, he whispered, "Your mother chose you to free the world, but only if you're strong enough to walk alone." She looked at him, her friend, her mentor, her betrayer. "No," she said, "not alone, not again." And she opened her palm. Between them, the feather and the shard rose into the air, fused, and the doorway ahead lit with fire and ash. "Together," Lila said, and they stepped through, into the place where the final flame slept. They climbed the final path in silence. Above them loomed the throne of flame and silence, an ancient seat carved into the heart of Mount Garthun, surrounded by flickering pillars of red lightning and rivers of molten memory. Each step felt heavier. The wind howled not with air but with voices, memories screaming, crying, whispering. Lila felt all of them pressing into her bones, her ancestors, her mother, the train conductor, the passengers, even Korov, especially Korov. At the summit, the world was broken. Sky and ground twisted together. Gravity pulled sideways. Stars blinked like dying embers in a storm. And at the throne, seated as if he had always been there, was Korov, no longer a man. He had no face now, only a smooth mirror. His arms were long and made of pages, contracts, signed in blood and echo. His heart pulsed visibly, a black sun that beat with a rhythm not of life but control. He smiled without lips. "You're late," he said. Lila stepped forward. "You stopped time. You chained my world. You made children disappear into trains with no destination." He gestured lazily. "I offered order. That's all I ever gave." Tagore stepped beside her. "You gave silence, fear, obedience. And yet, Korov said, rising, so many followed. He stepped down from the throne, and the world screamed. The sky cracked. A hole tore open, showing the real world far below, flickering like a candle in storm winds. The forest, the train, the passengers, the towns, all fragile. Korov spread his arms. Let's not pretend this is a battle. This is a choice. She can sit, she can rule, she can end the noise. He turned to Lila. You were meant to be mine. I was meant to be free, she said. She raised her hands. The twin spirals of memory and flame burned white-hot. Tagore did the same. From his palms flowed shadow and silence, not cold, but deep. They were opposites, but together they balanced. Korov snarled, and the sky fell. He charged, no longer walking but gliding, tearing the mountain as he came. Lila and Tagore split apart, dodging like dancers. Korov struck, and a ring of fire exploded from the throne. He reached for Lila, but she twisted, spun, and landed a glowing palm against his chest. Memory surged through him. He screamed. He saw everything, her childhood, her mother, the doll, the scarf, the loneliness, the love, the flame. He tried to wrench it away, but Tagore was there, fists like thunder, shadows binding Korov's limbs. They fought like storm gods. Korov shattered part of the mountain. Lila nearly fell into the crack between worlds, but caught herself with a thread of memory. Then she saw it. The throne was changing. It wasn't a seat. It was a lock, a prison. The key wasn't a person, it was a choice. If she sat, she could lock Korov away forever, but she would never leave. She would become the next keeper of balance, half flame, half shadow. She looked at Tagore. He knew. I can take the throne, he said. Let me, but she shook her head. No, you already carry silence. I carry fire. Together we keep the door shut. But only I can close it. Tagore's voice cracked. You'll disappear, she smiled. I'll become part of this world. Not gone, just remembered. Then she turned to Korov, wounded, crawling, screaming curses, and she sat. The throne pulsed. It recognized her, accepted her. The light of her spiral flared. So did the shadow of Tagore's silence. A great wind howled, not air but truth, and Korov was pulled into the gap behind the throne, screaming, folding, vanishing. The sky stitched itself shut. The throne burned for one final moment, and then went silent. The next moment the train jolted. The passengers awoke, confused, alive. Outside, the forest was still. The sun had returned. A girl stepped off the train, not as a passenger, but as a guardian. Her name was Lila, but in time the world would forget that name, and call her instead the Flamebringer. And in a quiet temple high in the hills of Garthun, a great gorilla sat alone, watching the horizon. He spoke less now, but when he did, his words carried the echo of fire, and every year, when the mountain bloomed with red light, he would sit at its base, place a red scarf beside the river, and whisper, "She burned not to destroy, but to keep us warm." Thank you very much for watching our story to the end. Subscribe to the channel, like it, leave comments so you don't miss new, interesting, exciting stories. See you soon.